So this time, I'm including the costs. How to build an ADU in California. In this video, I'm gonna cover timeline, the steps to build an ADU, the costs to build an ADU, and just my overall experience building an ADU here in California. If you don't know what an ADU is, that's okay. That's why you're here. It's an accessory dwelling unit. That could be an attached, detached, above, some sort of additional unit on your home or multifamily. So I actually made another video covering how to build an ADU, but what I noticed was that most people just like left the video immediately once I said, I'm not going to be covering the costs. So this time I'm including the costs, but keep in mind, the cost might have changed by now. This is just from my personal experience. So the ADU that we built, detached, 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 3-bath. Now, mind you, our lot is about 14,000 square feet. California, depending on where you are in California, that could be big or small. In Orange County, 14,000 square feet that's a pretty sizable lot. It's a good size, plenty of room to build. Okay, now let's get into the fun stuff. I'm gonna just give you a quick summary, right? Timeline. We met our architect May of 2021. We completed our ADU. We got our certificate of occupancy, which is the final sign off from those city inspectors in January, the very beginning of January 2023. So my math tells me that that's a 21-month project. And so there's definitely some things that we as the owners and like project managers could have done better or, expedited the process, but this is our first one. So really happy with the results, learned a lot, and got it done in a reasonable amount of time. Now, this is what everyone wants to know, right? The cost. So the cost was about $285,000. And when I say cost, I'm talking about architect fees, permit fees, planning fees, developer fees, labor, material, everything. That was everything to build it. And so you guys might be wondering, well, Darren, did you just have like $285,000 laying around? The answer is no. That'd be cool if I did, but we finance basically the whole project. So if you do the rough math here, right? $285,000 divided by 1,200 square feet comes out to roughly $237.50 per square feet. We built it with the intent to kind of cash flow, but also a lot of family and friend use. And so actually the first year after it was completed, we didn't rent it out really at all. We would really just have it for friends and family. And they would pay a small cleaning fee because we would get like a professional cleaner. But for the most part, we wanted to go through this process, learn about the ADU process, and then obviously have an ADU. This year, we have decided to start renting it out, and it's going to rent for about $4,200 a month. That's with utilities included. So from a investment perspective, if we purely just rented it out, 12 months a year, it'd be $4,200 a month, which is about, $50,000 a year of additional revenue. And so don't get me wrong, like there definitely is the option to do that, and we would definitely consider it because we'd be cash flowing really well considering our financing costs. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the timeline of the build, then I'll cover the costs, and then I'll just share my takeaways, biggest lessons, and then if you have any questions, just feel free to email me. I'll drop my email at the end of the video. First, how do we find the architect? I have a friend who had built an ADU that I had walked in our city, so went and checked that out, and I just asked for introduction. That was all. So basically, the plans cost $7,000. Sure, we could have gotten it cheaper, but this was a trusted architect. I knew that they had worked in our city a lot. They've done many projects here, very familiar with the process, and they handled submitting everything to the city. So I thought that was a fair price. Okay, so going back to the timeline of the draft, right, for our ADU, met beginning of May. We sent our revisions at the beginning of June. we end up looking at, over with a couple other people that have built ADUs, one of our friends, an interior designer. So we get everyone's intake, we get everyone's feedback, we submit our revisions and notes to the architect. So we finally get through like draft one, right? Just of the plans and the layouts, the lights, where everything goes in the rooms, the plumbing, in the actual ADU itself. Then we move to the next step, which is the elevations. This is like the outside of the ADU and what it's going to look like, how high everything is, what the ceiling pitch will look like, all that good stuff. And so we got those first elevation draft, or we got our draft for elevations like the first week of July. Received first week of July. Once again, we kind of take our time. We respond, I think, at the end of July. I think within a week we get that all sorted, and then first week of August, everything's submitted to the city for plan check. And sure enough, plan check is approved by the city August 31st. So that means, they have to respond, in our city at least, they had to respond within 6 weeks. And so we got some notes back the first week of October. We had to lower some of our windows. We had to change a couple things here and there, but architect took care of it all. Here are some other fees that you're gonna have to pay before you can actually get your plans approved and and get all your permits and all your sign-offs. In our city, we have developer fees that you have to pay to the school district, and then you're gonna have public works. For us, that means sewer, right? So additional fees to those other organizations that are not the city but within our county. So basically, it takes us until December to pay off all these developer fees, city fees, public works fees. Now, we could have probably done this a lot faster, but it was the holidays. We were doing other stuff. If this was like a project purely for return on investment, we would have been probably done with this a lot sooner. So I think it was like mid-December, we finally paid our last developer fee to the school district, and we got the go-ahead from the school district. You're good to pull permits. So what does that mean? Pulling permits means you can actually start construction, right? At this time, we start interviewing contractors. We give them our plans. We go, hey, these are ready to be pulled, and we start getting bids from contractors. So it takes us, it's the holiday season. So of course, not all contractors are going to get back to us. We got 3 or 4 bids. We end up going with another referral, but we broke ground March, very beginning of March. And so the construction process starts with site prep. So with site prep, contractor comes, they spray paint the area they're going to be working in. We got a little bobcat. If you're not sure what that is, it's a heavy machinery that will dig, move a bunch of dirt and soil, break stuff up, break some concrete up. And so they're getting ready to trench. They're digging up in the front yard as well to create some sewer lines and water lines from the street and our main water line to the ADU in the back. So basically this full month of March, right? And you're going to see some clips here. You're going to see some pictures and videos of the site prep. They're getting all the trenching, which is all the underground piping, right? Ready. And then they're preparing to lay the foundation. They start installing all the footings, right? It's all this wooden framing to get ready to pour all the concrete. Be prepared as well. We had, I think, a week of rain, which set us back a week because they can't really be doing this type of work in the rain, right? It'd be muddy, it'd be unstable. They can't be driving the Bobcat like that. So yeah, I mean, here's a quick overview of what it looked like. Okay, so by the end of March, they were ready. They finished the footing, right? Foundation work, finished the underground plumbing. You got to get some inspections. So we got to pass on that before we can move on to the next step. So April, they were still, continuing with that trenching, doing some underground electrical work, doing some underground water pipes. And then once all that stuff was passed, then we could pour the concrete. The foundation was set. At the end of April, that was completed. So basically, March and April, trenching, plumbing, underground lines, foundation. Then May, framing. So if you're not sure what framing is, that's the wooden frame of the home going up. This process is really cool to watch. Here's some photos and videos. You can kind of see this is like when the home starts to take shape. So this framing process took about 2.5 weeks. And that's also, by the end of May, right? Like third week, end of May-ish, framing went all the way up, both 2 stories, and then boom, roof on top. So framing was a big milestone because once you do the framing, then you can start doing the MEP. So what is MEP? Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, rough inside the home, right? So they're wiring stuff through the wood. They are doing the PEX plumbing, which is PEX is basically like this plastic instead of copper going through the house for your water. So they basically spent the whole month of June doing the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And in this time frame, they're also starting to install the windows. They're doing the roof shingles. The house is starting to look a little bit more like a house. It's just not wrapped up yet. And so in terms of inspections, the next big inspection we had was MEP, right? What I just talked about, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We had a bunch of corrections on that. Nothing major, luckily, but we did have corrections. Also, one of our windows was installed too low, so they had to like reframe that back up. But that happens. That's part of construction. Now you're probably wondering, where are we in the timeline? It's the first week of August. We got an inspection at the end of July, so we had corrections. We finished those corrections. We get another inspection, and yeah, by the end of the first week of August, we passed MEP, which is a huge milestone. You're wondering, why is that a huge milestone? Well, now you can wrap the house. Your house can get enclosed, and you can start doing all the, insulation, closing up the house. Okay, so then the house gets insulated. They install the lathe. They basically wrap the house. So now your house is no longer just like wooden frames everywhere. It's enclosed. It's got that cool little paper with the little like chicken wire looking stuff over it. You'll see it right here. You see this a lot with construction. And then that passes. So now it's like middle of August, and we get to start hanging drywall. So we start to really get to enclose the walls inside the home. So drywall gets hung. Another inspection for that. It's the end of August. This thing's starting to look like a real like house building, The timeline gets a little foggy because now it's like we did some additional work to our yard plus concrete work for the ADU. But I think that added probably like an extra 2 weeks or 3 weeks to the timeline. If it was just the ADU, then we would have just stayed on track. But obviously taking the contractor's resources to work on a different project for like our main house / yard, instead of like working on the finish of the ADU, added some time. So this was on us as owners, project managers. Like I said, if this was just for like return on investment, we probably would have finished this maybe 2 or 3 months faster. But now it's September, and so now they are working on running the gas line. So the gas line was on the whole other side of the yard. So that was a pretty long trench. And then finish work. So what do I mean by finish work? Basically from the middle or like later part of September, probably last third or fourth week of September, until basically the new year, was all interior finishes. So installing the cabinets, installing the flooring, installing the stair rails, tile in all of our showers, backsplash in the kitchen, installing all the light fixtures, making sure everything in the house actually works. And then with a new build construction, when you pour your own foundation, there's going to be some settling. So even after, some of the stuff was installed, for example, if you have luxury vinyl plank and you don't cut enough space for the wood to expand, or the planks to expand, you could have bubbling. So your floor could be uneven. So basically the next, 3 months, October, November, December, we're really just dialing in the interior of the home. And then also some exterior landscaping work, just making sure the ADU had like a little patio area. We did it with DG instead of grass, so we wouldn't have to worry about maintenance. For those of you who don't know, DG is just decomposed granite. So it just looks kind of like that sand material, and it's just hard packed. So yeah, here's some like photos of the finish work, right? Here's like the shower, the kitchen, the cabinets, everything's going in. This stuff just takes time because it's more skilled, more detailed. But yeah, we also had a couple revisions that we had to take care of. So you get these inspections, you get revisions. Those revisions take time, right? Because the contractors are working on other jobs as well. So I think at the end, the biggest thing was that if I would have pressed harder on my contractor to make sure this got finished sooner, it would have. This isn't like I needed to get this rented out right away. Now, if it was a different type of project, I probably would, as I mentioned before, got this done 2 to 3 months faster. Oh, also, because we are in California, we had to get solar installed. So that was another permit. That was another sign off. That whole process probably took 2 weeks though. But yeah, we did that also at the end of December. So yeah, all in all, that's the timeline from actual construction, which started in March of 2022. We got our final sign off January of 2023, which I think is pretty reasonable. Probably could have done it a little bit faster, but like still very reasonable. The permitting and the planning process took us quite a bit longer because we didn't press for it as much. That probably could have been done, 2 or 3 months faster as well. Now that I've actually gone through the timeline of everything, drop a comment if this has been helpful, or if you would want more information on other things. Without your feedback, I really don't know if this is helpful or not. Now I'm going to dive into the costs. I think this is actually one of the things that people really like to know about. So, like I said previously, architect 7,000. We paid the planning department in our city $2,168. We paid the public works, so sewer, traffic, and school fees. We paid $8,056, and then to actually get the permit, we paid $6,785 roughly. So before we even could start construction, this project costed about $24,000. And so that's even before we started building. So now we took those plans, we interviewed these contractors, and this is just for labor and raw materials covered by the contractor. So like nails, paint, plaster, whatever the contractor needed to do the basic stuff, like we agreed that that would be covered in these fees. And we have a very clear draw schedule. So 10% deposit, 20% upfront for materials. I tried to fight that a lot, but the contractor said, no, I need this 20% upfront. A lot of it is going to be for like the framing. And so basically, like right when he got the money, he's like, I'm going to order all the framing. So the overall agreed upon contract for labor and raw materials with my contractor was $211,850. And so I'll break that down for you in our draw schedule. It's right here. 10% deposit up front, just to, I guess, as a good faith, which to be honest, I tried to fight this upfront 10% deposit a lot because I didn't want the contractor to like run away with my money or whatever. But after going through the project, I do understand why he needed this. And then also he took a 20% materials deposit, which I thought was like, whoa, this is a lot of money, But within the first 2 weeks, I realized that he bought a lot of wood. There was a lot of wood that showed up in my house. It had to be craned in, right? Because there was so much wood for all the framing that they were going to be doing. And then my first 10% payment was upon completion of foundation. The next 10% was completion of the framing. Then it was another 10% completion of rough MEP. Then the next one was completion of drywall. After that, completion of stucco. After that, completion of tile and flooring. And last but not least, completion of project. And so I actually love the way my contractor operated and did this because it was very much so, hey, I have to pass these inspections, right? I have to go get the city inspection and sign off before you pay me anything, because that means the job's not done. And so now this is actually one of my main trusted contractors that I work with because I know the way he does business. I know that he's trustworthy, and I know that he gets things done. Okay, so now you're wondering, like, where's the other 285,000 that you mentioned at the beginning of the video? Because this is like about 212,000 plus 24,000. We're missing a good chunk here. So the remaining portion was materials. So we paid for the cabinets, we paid for our own solar, we paid for the flooring, we paid for the tile in the bathrooms, we paid for all the light fixtures, we paid for all the counters, right? We paid for basically everything inside the contractor did not provide that, but the contractor did go pick that stuff up for us and then install everything, right? So there were some additional things that we paid for that were not included in the rough materials, right? And those were the finishes. So this is also a piece that could vary quite a bit depending on what kind of finishes do you want in your ADU, right? If you're going to go high-end marble, well, that's a lot more expensive than our, basic quartz. Or if you're going to go with real wood floors, that's going to be more expensive than the luxury vinyl plank that we chose. So you can also go kind of crazy with light fixtures or, different types of showers, or the tile that you select. So those costs can vary. All in all, yeah, the cost for us was about $285,000. That's contractor labor, right? All the fees for the architect, the fees regarding planning, the planning phase, I'll call it, right? So the architect, the city developer fees, the permitting, all that good stuff. And then materials, right? So tile, bathtub, fixtures, right? That could be your plumbing fixtures, your light fixtures, flooring, your cabinets, your counters, your sink, all that stuff. If you enjoyed this video so far, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Biggest takeaways would be don't get really upset over things that you can't control. I learned that right away with this project because it started raining when they started working. So that set us back, I think, a week or two right away, right? So there's just things that we can't control. Just don't lose your cool over it. It doesn't help the situation. I would say budget a little bit of extra just in case, because maybe you bought the wrong stuff. Maybe the stuff that you thought that you wanted is out of stock and the only available option that you like is more expensive. I want to say that happened to us with some tile that we picked out for the bathroom. We didn't have enough to make the bathroom, so we had to choose like a different one. There's just little things that you would want to budget extra for, right? And then you're going to probably want to allocate a little bit of extra time and, treat your workers with respect. I would always try to, give them extra water or whatever else and just treat them well because they're working hard. They would come early. Sometimes they would stay late to get things done. Overall, I just try to treat everyone with respect. And I think the workers really appreciated that on our job site. Another thing too is if you have trusted, reliable referrals for this type of stuff, that's good, but also make sure that they are licensed, right? Licensed, bonded, insured, all that good stuff. Make sure they have their certifications up to date. And then make sure you have a very clear draw schedule, right? Like make sure you have that contract all up front. If I didn't have that with them, I would not have been comfortable moving forward. Like I want to say another one or two of the contractors I had were like, didn't provide me any actual timeline. Sorry to ramble here, but big takeaway, right? Do a good job interviewing your contractor and make sure you have a clear timeline and scope of work. I hope this video helps you build your ADU, or maybe, helps you plan for your ADU. If you need help and you don't have anyone to reach out to, I'm going to drop my email right here. Email me and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can help with.